que você ama em uma universidade? Aprender na prática com grandes empresas? Conviver com pessoas que mudam o mundo? Ou estudar em uma estrutura com padrão internacional? Na Anhembi Morumbi, tudo isso acontece. Venha descobrir por que milhares de alunos amam estudar aqui. Acesse anhembi.br e faça sua matrícula. Amo é Anhembi Morumbi. Aqui tudo acontece.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, I'm delighted to be with you. The phone number here at the Eric Erickson Show, 877-973-7425. I feel compelled to tell you as well that it actually is my name, Eric Erickson. It's not a stage name. I know a lot of people in radio don't use their real name. This is my real name. My parents were very original. It happens to be my father and grandfather as well. In any event, just clarifying that. Also, hello to you in Brunswick, Georgia on WGIG. I'm delighted to be with you again down in Brunswick. I will come visit you, I promise. I want to move to a question a listener submitted. I actually had a tale with which to regale you. But I'm not going to do that yet because I think it's more important that I get this listener's question answered. It's that important of a question, I think. Listener Amberly has emailed me. I have a question about the CNN debate. I do believe Trump will triumph tonight, depending on how good Biden's cocaine was today. However, I have real concerns about the coverage from CNN. If no one is allowed in or out aside from the CNN staff and no witnesses or recordings will be allowed, how can Americans be reassured the coverage we are seeing on tonight, CNN, is accurate and not edited? Can you speak to this? Yes, I can. Fear not, Amberly, because CNN is opening the feed to all the other newsrooms, and it has to be a live feed by nature of that. So CNN will not be able to edit the coverage. It's going to be run live, second to second. Now, there's always like a 20-second delay, but they won't be able to edit that with a 20-second delay. What you see tonight is going to be a live presidential debate. There will be 2 commercial breaks during the debate. They will not be long debates, enough time for 2 old men to run to the restroom and get back. Okay, so maybe they will be long commercial breaks, but nonetheless, there will only be 2 commercial breaks, and everything else will be live, and the feed will be available to all the other news networks, so you will visibly be able to see. If there's somehow some edited cut or something, you would be able to see it. And also, the campaigns, both of them, more likely the Trump campaign, because if you're skeptical of CNN, it's more from the right. The campaigns will be able to cry foul if something like that were to happen because they would be able to see it. There will be people there. It's not going to be a hermetically sealed room. The campaigns will be allowed to have staff there who will witness everything. They're just not going to have a live audience, so there won't be cheering and hollering and booing and stuff like that. There'll be no debate audience per se, but each side will have surrogates there. After the debate is over, what always happens is there is a spin room where both sides try to convince you that they won and the other guy lost and that the refs were unfair to their side. So there will be all that. So let not your heart be troubled by that. Now, I want to say something else on this. The fact that Amberly has this concern is something I think that people in the media are too dismissive of because you get combative when you're in the press. You say, well, of course they're going to hate us. They perceive we're in the liberal media, whatever. No. That is fair to some degree that conservatives complain relentlessly about the media. But conservatives complain relentlessly about the media because there's validity to the concerns. You know, stereotypes exist for a reason. People did not pull out the Karen stereotype and just make it something. You may be offended by the use of the word Karen, but I say that as opposed to the awfuls, the affluent white female urban liberals, because you know immediately when I say the Karen phenomenon, you know what I mean. I've got a friend who's named Karen. She really is not a fan of the use of the word Karen to describe it, and I get that. But to understand, you know what I mean. There's a stereotype there. They call them Karens, and it's a stereotype for a reason. People didn't make it up. Stereotypes exist for reasons. And the stereotype of the American media being in the pocket of the left and too far left and thinking left in the worldview of the left, it is real. When I was at CNN for 3 years. I then moved to Fox News for 5 years. Do you know why I went to CNN? Just as an aside, I went to CNN at the end of 2009. Fox News made me an offer. Bill Shine was the executive vice president of Fox. Sean Hannity convinced me I needed to go meet with him, and Fox made me an offer. And I called, well, I shouldn't say I called, I texted because he didn't like to use the phone, Rush Limbaugh. And I also had a relationship with Joe Scarborough at MSNBC. Both of them used almost verbatim the same example. And I took it as God's sign to go to CNN. Both men, Joe Scarborough and Rush Limbaugh, essentially said, if you go to Fox News this early in your career, in my early 30s, just starting out in TV punditry, and both of them said, if you go to Fox News, it's going to be like taking up the pulpit in a suburban Dallas church. You're going to get a lot of amens, and your life's going to be good, and you're just going to be preaching to the choir. If you go to CNN, you're going to be a missionary in darkest Africa where 9 out of 10 things want to kill you. And it'll make you better at your job to be there. And so I went to CNN, and they were right. From day one, the left was trying to get me fired. In fact, it was the most money I'd ever made. And I had driven a hunk of junk car that my sister-in-law had bought used, and then I bought it used from her. And it was falling apart. I needed a new car. And I'm like, I'm going to buy a brand new car. I'm going to make enough money I can buy a brand new car. And I was at the car dealership. I was buying a brand new Toyota 4Runner. I still miss that 4Runner. And the head of talent for CNN called. I had already signed the contract and said, we may have to cancel the contract. People are in such an uproar over us having you. Even our CNN contributors have come to us and said they're threatening to quit if we hire you. Because it's not just on the right. You've said things. It's never a problem for the left, but on the right, you say things that offend the left. It becomes a problem. And I couldn't get my car that day. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. I'm there ready to pay for my car, and I can't get the car because CNN may cancel my contract, and I haven't even started yet. They wound up hiring me, and I got the car. And every other week was a fight. When I was up at CNN, I was ready to go to Fox. I was tired of the constant fights. Am I going to get suspended? Am I going to get contract canceled? Because that was always the case at CNN. And I wanted a very simple clause in my contract that I could not be disciplined for anything that transpired on the website I was running, redstate.com, or on my radio show. I would not be fired or disciplined for anything that happened on my radio show or at redstate.com, because redstate.com was a group site and people were trying to get me fired for stuff other people did. Just wanted a very simple statement, and they're, nope. Said, Jeff Zucker's coming. He's going to be more loose with this. You should just trust him. It was like, I want it in writing. They refused to put it in writing, and Roger Ailes took me to dinner. Roger Ailes, we went to, Patsy's in New York. That was favorite Italian restaurant. We sat at Patsy's, and he said, if you come to Fox News, you will never have to worry about losing your job for anything you've said anywhere again. Sold. And to get me out of my CNN contract, he had to pay me an exorbitant sum of money. In fact, I found out at one point that I think at one time I was one of the if not the highest paid Fox political contributor, just because they wanted to lure me away from CNN. Now, what happened was I got there. About 6 months in, I was very critical of Mitch McConnell, who was a friend of Roger Ailes', and I was sidelined. Hardly ever got any airtime. I was on CNN like 5 nights a week. At Fox, I'd be lucky to be on once a quarter. Forgotten, buried. It's also what Roger Ailes did with conservatives he thought were sometimes too troublesome. He'd pay them a lot of money to not go on TV. But I got to tell you, Fox News is the only place I ever worked that paid every single – I got a paycheck every week. Now, they've changed that in the last few years. Now you get a paycheck every other week like most businesses, but at the time it was every single Friday I got a paycheck from Fox. And I got a paycheck even if I didn't go on TV. The difference was when I went on TV and when I went up to Fox, people would come up to me in the building and they would chat up, oh, I love this thing you wrote this week. Oh, this was good. I disagree with you on that, but man, it's so good to have your voice, blah, 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 blah. At CNN, I'd walk down the halls at the CNN Center in Atlanta. People come up to me and say, hey, I listen to you on the radio. Don't tell anybody. It's a big difference. There is a real bias in much of the American media, including at CNN, and the network doesn't seem to get it. The network doesn't seem to understand it. And they would be better if they did. I'm a big fan of CNN, and I think they made a fundamental mistake by consolidating their newsroom in New York City. They should be back in Georgia. You know, their whole sales pitch to me back in the day was, we're headquartered in Georgia and have no one from Georgia who represents the people of Georgia on TV. They wanted someone who was from the South who sounded like he was from. They always complained about my appearance. I didn't wear V-neck undershirts. Just they didn't like. I mean, it's just the New York people complained all the time. But they treated me. The anchors treated me well. And the anchors, almost to a person in the evening, not the daytime anchors, they were all annoyingly progressive. But the evening anchors and the overnight anchors and stuff, that they appreciated having a conservative voice because they recognized their blind spots. But I think that's gotten worse now, too, where they don't necessarily appreciate or recognize the blind spots anymore. And they don't really want to reach across the aisle. They don't want to understand the other side. There are some who still do, I think, but a lot of them don't. And the producers in the editorial line at CNN, I think Chris Licht recognized the problem and was trying to change it, and they ran him off. It's what's happening with the Washington Post. You've got the editor and the publisher of the Washington Post realize that they've gone way too far left, and now there's a revolt of staff trying to drive out the publisher and the editor of a now money-losing enterprise because people are canceling their subscriptions. I'm one of them. I canceled my subscription to the Washington Post. It's just gotten too pro-Hamas for me. I don't want to give Hamas money. The media stereotype of being liberal exists for a reason. CNN has a chance tonight to show they can run a fair debate. I know that most every single person who listens to this program today and is on the right and intends to vote for Trump is going to watch the debate tonight and decide the debate moderators were out to get Donald Trump. It is inevitably part of what happens. Unless they fought over him, they're going to get attacked for being too hostile to him. I will come in here tomorrow, and some of you will be very mad at me if I watch the debate and think that they did a pretty good job. I'll let you know. If I think not, I'll let you know. I'm pretty straightforward with how I critique debates. I've been parts of presidential debates. Why toe the party line? But they also know, Dana Bash and Jake Tapper do, that they have a service to do to the public, and they will do a better job of that service to the public if they are ruthless to both sides. Do not give either Joe Biden or Donald Trump a pass. Ask them tough questions, hold their feet to the fire, and make them answer the questions. And if they are ruthless to Donald Trump, be ruthless to Joe Biden. And both sides can scream about it, but I think they'll have done a job for the American public. But I also think that the new guy at CNN, the new president of CNN, should be mindful that when I've got conservatives like Amberly asking, how are we going to know that they didn't edit this and mess this up? You can belittle people like Amberly and say, oh, she's just one of those conservatives who hates the media. You should understand there's a lot of hate for the media on the right these days, and almost all of it is deserved. And you should be asking yourself, what can we do to change that perception? It's not to ask softball questions of Donald Trump. It's to be fair to both sides and represent them honestly. And I don't think that's happening in much of the press these days.
Ideal mesmo para o mundo atual seria fazer o ensino médio junto com o curso técnico, certo? É no Senac que o aluno tem autonomia de verdade, formação cidadã, foco na diversidade, preparação para o Enem, material didático sem taxas e muito mais. Na real, tem tudo que você precisa para se sentir preparado para a vida. Seja para entrar no mundo do trabalho ou te ajudar a decidir o que fazer na faculdade. Quer saber? Senac. Vem comigo. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino-médio-técnico.
Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. John calling. You're going to be up next. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Eric, I am doing great. And I have your new book. Unfortunately, we got one copy. My wife got first crack at it, and she wanted to let you know that she loves it. And her quote was, "You tackled the subject in a way that no one else has before." And I can't wait to get a hold of it when she's done with it.
Well, tell your wife I love her.
Well, thank you very much. I pass that along regularly. I had a kind of a funny thing about the debate that I talked to the screen caller about. There's also a serious thing that came up at the end of the last hour, so I don't know if you want to start with funny or serious.
Whichever way you want to go. We got about a minute and a half here, though.
Okay. Here, I'll start with the funny thing then. So if it takes Biden a week to prepare for 90 minutes with Donald Trump on a debate, does that mean that the Chinese are going to send him an email or call him a week ahead of time before they attack Taiwan to make sure that he's awake?
They're going to like tell him that it's going to happen to hop him up, and then when it doesn't and he falls asleep, that's when they're going to do it.
Yep, I'm back. Okay. I don't know what happened.
No,
yes.
I don't know. Yeah. The Chinese they're going to fake him out. They're going to hop him up, get him all wired, and then when he stays up all night waiting for the attack and it doesn't happen, and he falls asleep. That's when they'll do it.
Yeah. On a serious note, you mentioned that there's been another victim of illegal alien violence at the end of the last hour. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I'm not giving advice to anybody about debates, but, they've said that Biden has been practicing all these little quips and one-liners to jab at Trump. And maybe Trump's best comeback is, well, you've been trying to practice jokes and jabs at me. I'm just trying to keep up with memorizing all the names of all the victims of your open border policy. And I think I have the harder job.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. I got to let you go there, but yes. Yeah, that would be a great line. In fact, stick around. Let me play some relevant audio when we come back. But first, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure thunderstorm. After these gentlemen leave Atlanta, the whole city might need to be firing up their Eden Pure thunderstorms, and you can get 3 of them for less than $200 and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. You can go to Eden Pure Thunderstorm, EdenPureDeals.com, and get them. They're air purifiers, but they get rid of bad odors, like Joe Biden coming to the city. Wipes out that odor. Smoke odor, litter box odors, pet odors, fried fish odors in the house, you name it. It wipes them out. You can use it with a USB cord, or you can plug it up directly into the wall. You go to EdenPureDeals.com. You put in the discount code ERIC3. You get 3 of them for less than $200. You save $200. You start cleaning the air in your house, upstairs, downstairs, your basement, wherever you need them. And they're small enough to be in a travel bag. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3.
Esse podcast é um oferecimento de Samsung Galaxy AI. E sabe o que mais ele te oferece? Que tal uma nova maneira de buscar na internet a partir de fotos ou do que está na sua tela? Fácil. Viu? Circulou? Encontrou. Ou quem sabe um assistente de notas para gravar reuniões, transcrever gravações e organizar, produzindo resumos eficientes. Tem tanta coisa que o Samsung Galaxy AI pode fazer por você. Clique aí no banner para descobrir o que. Galaxy AI, a inteligência artificial nas suas mãos.
So one of the phenomena that you discover in life when you know something about something is that the people most likely to make the claims that you think are wild claims are the people who don't really have any expertise in it and yet have convinced themselves that they can read the internet and are smart people, therefore they know something's possible. And I don't mean that to be insulting, but you know it's true. You hear this from left-wing activists all the time when they want to tell you how the oil industry can change overnight. Well, they read it online and they're convinced that they're smart people and therefore they know it's so, even though it's not. But so there are a lot of people, I'm getting emails from people saying CNN says there's going to be a 1-minute delay in the networking. Surely they can edit the debate to make Joe Biden look good. If you don't know anything about how this process works, that's an easy conclusion to go. They've got a minute to do something. The problem is, if they edit like that, everybody's going to recognize it because it takes a good long while to edit video for a logical flow. And it's also very hard because of the way a delay works to be able to edit out that the other networks don't detect it. It's a virtual impossibility that they can edit Joe Biden's comments in a minute without it being obvious that they edited it, which would raise all sorts of questions. You need much longer time and not with a live feed. Like, for example, so this program airs in delay, just like the CNN show is going to do. That's because if someone calls in and loses their mind on radio, we get the ability to bleep them. The problem, however, is that you, by virtue of the delay and the edit, will get dead air. So if CNN decides to edit out Joe Biden looking like an insane person, they want to get rid of it, you're going to see dead air by virtue of the process, and you'll know immediately CNN has made edits. Now, watch there be a technical problem tonight, and I've said that. People are like, they were editing it, or as opposed to a squirrel got into a generator and committed suicide and took out the power. The other thing I'm getting is this, and Charlie has texted me and said callers are just calling in. What, Donna Brazil, here we couldn't get the questions early. What if CNN gives Joe Biden, when they pre-screen the questions, they worked with Joe Biden? On that, I can't help you other than to say this. Donald John Trump, former president of the United States, committed to do a debate on CNN. If you think that CNN would pre-screen the questions with Joe Biden and give Joe Biden advance notice so he can prepare, okay, why did Donald Trump agree to do it then? That's on him, not on me. Nothing I can do about it. I don't think that Dana Bash and Jake Tapper would do that. Many of you are so suspicious of the media that there's no way you won't be convinced. Well, I don't care. We're going to have the debate. You can watch it yourself and make your own determination as to what you think. And if you think that, well, there's only Joe Biden could have answered the question because they gave him an advance, okay, that's fine with me. I'm not going to disabuse you of that notion if that makes you sleep well at night. Think that's what happened. Go for it. I don't care. We're going to watch the presidential debate tonight, and you can scream foul and not fair and whatever, and maybe that'll shape the result. I don't know. But I can't go down those rabbit holes to disabuse you of something that for which you're epistemically convinced is going to happen anyway. So we will move on to the story I wanted to talk about, and now I've lost the link. I know what it is. It's the Maldives. So the New York Times has this wild and wacky story about the Maldives. And I want to read for you the headline: The Vanishing Islands That Failed to Vanish. Turns out the Maldives, which you will recall were supposed to be wiped out, they're not being wiped out. This is a remarkable story of the climate change zealots trying to have it both ways in their religious zeal. Let me just read for you the opening of this New York Times story again. The headline of this story is The Vanishing Islands That Failed to Vanish. On a wisp of land in the Indian Ocean, 2 hops by plane and 1 bumpy speedboat ride from the nearest continent, the sublime blue waves lapping at the bone-white sand are just about all that breaks the stillness of a hot, windless afternoon. The very existence of slow-slung tropical islands seems improbable, a glitch, a nearly seamless meeting of land and sea, peeking up like an illusion above the violent oceanic expanse. They're among the most marginal environments humans have ever called home. And indeed, when the world began paying attention to global warming decades ago, these islands, which form atop coral reefs and clusters called atolls, were quickly identified as some of the first places climate change might ravage in their entirety. As the ice caps melted and the seas crept higher, these accidents of geologic history were bound to be corrected and the tiny islands returned to watery oblivion. Then, not very long ago, researchers began sifting through aerial images and found something startling. They looked at a couple dozen islands first, then several hundred, and by now close to 1,000. They found that over the past few decades, the island's edges had wobbled this way and that, eroded here, building there, but by and large, they hadn't shrunk. In some cases, they grew. The seas rose and the islands expanded with them. Scientists have come to understand some but not all of the reasons, which is why a team of them recently converged in the Maldives on an island they'd spent weeks outfitting with instruments and sensors and cameras. They were there to learn about the steady collision of blue waves and white sand. If you will recall, the Maldives became the poster child for climate change. The oceans would rise and this vacation paradise would be wiped out, and it's not happening. And now you know what the cult is doing, the cult of climate change? They're rationalizing it as, well, actually, climate change is now causing the islands to grow. Climate change is now causing the islands to grow. Funny how that works. November 3rd, 2021, headline, Facing Dire Sea Level Rise Threat, Maldives Turn to Climate Change Solutions to Survive. The islands could be 80% uninhabitable by 2050. Our islands are slowly being inundated by the sea one by one. Ibrahim Mohammed Sully, the president of the Maldives, told the UN Climate Change Conference earlier this week. If we do not reverse the trend, the Maldives will cease to exist. Now, 3 years later, a surprising climate find. As the planet warms, the Maldives seemed doomed to shrink. But now there's a new story. Quote, I'm confident there will be islands in the Maldives 50 to 100 years from now. One of the researchers on the team told me, they're not going to look like these islands. They're going to be different, but there will be land here. To me, that's the challenge. How do you coexist with the change that's coming? How? How indeed. Now, there's also, they got to doomsay this, though the research suggests the atolls aren't about to wash away entirely. It means they have it hardly means they have anything to worry about. Global warming is putting coral reefs under severe strain. If the ice sheets melted faster than expected, sea levels could still rise. Oh my. And then at the Washington Post, on the same day, the climate hysterics at the Washington Post have this story. We've been accidentally cooling the planet, and it's about to stop. How have we been accidentally cooling the planet? Let me read you the subtitle. Y'all may need to sit down for this one. Rush to your fainting couch before I read the subheading. Humans' fossil fuel burning has cooled the planet while warming the planet. Our fossil fuel burning has cooled the planet while we've been warming the planet. It's widely accepted that humans have been heating up the planet for over a century by burning coal, oil, and gas. Earth has already warmed 1.2 degrees Celsius or 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit since pre-industrial times, and the planet is poised to race past the hoped-for limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. But fewer people know that burning fossil fuels doesn't just cause global warming, it causes global cooling, too. It's one of the great ironies of climate change, that air pollution has curbed some of the worst effects of a warming planet. And as society has cleaned up its pollution, the cooling has waned. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's the climate change cult. By the way, in addition to it being a summer heat wave, which is why they're taking advantage of this to tell the story, you know what else is going on here? Remember the Tonga volcano, and that's its real name, Tonga volcano. It spewed a massive metric poop ton of water vapor into the air. And scientists predicted that it would cause a massive spike in heating that could last several years. It's happening right now. And they're trying to take advantage of the volcano spewing water vapor into the air, causing unexpected but very predictable heating to say this. I got blasted by a reporter last year for pointing out that this was happening with the volcano. She said this isn't true. You can't say it. That the scientists haven't confirmed it. And now the scientists have confirmed it, but they're trying to distract from it and say, no, actually, look over here, look over here. So the Maldives were supposed to go away. They're not. And now fossil fuels have actually been cooling the planet while warming the planet, a deep contradiction. And they try to rationalize and synthesize all this together into a coherent narrative. It's a cult. It is a cult. That's what's happening. The climate change community has turned into a cult with a dangerous eschatology where if you do everything right and your neighbor does everything wrong, you're still going to burn. So you got to wipe out your neighbor. That's what's happening here. It is a religious cult. Now, to the phones. I want to go to David first. David, you're up next. Welcome to the show.
Well, it's amazing that I'm able to talk to you. It's first time call.
Well, welcome.
Well, I want to thank you for making me laugh all the time.
Well, you're welcome.
But also, I also want to thank you for your book. I've started reading it, and it's not an easy read, but I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. I'm about 20 pages in so far.
Oh, nice.
So, anyway.
Look at you. Well, listen, David, I appreciate it tremendously.
Well, you're welcome. And I want to say something about the science of global warming.
Okay.
It's the sun. It's the sun. The sun determines what our weather is.
No,
it's
you're not allowed
carbon.
to say that. David, you're not allowed to say that. That's heresy. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to speak the truth anymore.
I am. I do speak the truth, and I am allowed.
Well, and you know, David, we found signs of global warming on Mars. You would think that if we're finding global warming on Mars, maybe it's the robots that are doing it, since it's the only known planet completely inhabited by robots.
There you go, making me laugh again.
But, you know, it's true. Mars is legitimately the only known planet 100% inhabited by robots, and science shows that Mars is experiencing global warming. So it could be the robots, because that's the only thing we have in common with Mars is the robots or the sun. We also have that in common with Mars. Corey, you're up next. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going, Eric?
Great. What's going on?
First off, I love the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the news commentary, theological discussions, and the cooking, too. So
excellent.
Make sure you keep doing that. I wanted to ask, if you remember back when Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton had their debate, one of the questions they were asked was essentially, what's something that you admire about the other person, the other candidate? Mm-hmm. And I was curious if they pulled something like that tonight, what do you think Trump should say about Biden?
Oh, the thing I admire about you, Mr. President, is that even when you get lost in your words, you provide great laughter to America, sadly, also to our enemies. That's I mean, Joe Biden, you make us laugh. The other thing I might say if I was Donald Trump is I admire you, sir, for sticking by your two crackhead children despite everything. Look, gotcha. I mean, there's a complimentary nastiness that Donald Trump could pull by pointing out that, you know, for all the attacks on Donald Trump's kids by the left, and they have attacked his kids ruthlessly, Joe Biden generated two drug-addicted children, and Donald Trump did not. If you really want to get into the gutter on politics, why is it that a guy that everybody on the left hates has kids who seem to be more normal than Joe Biden's kids? Why is that exactly? Of course, the left will never concede it, but it's the truth. But yeah, I hope CNN doesn't pull that. Let's be cutesy and ask you silly questions. What's your favorite shampoo? I don't care. Ask tough questions of both sides. Let everybody complain that CNN was nasty to their side and leaked questions and edited the tape, and let everybody do it. And then I'll be here tomorrow to say, look, they both consented to CNN. They both did. So if you don't like it, blame the candidates. They knew what they were in for. And I just hope CNN asks them both tough questions. I mean, obviously, we know exactly what we're going to be talking about tomorrow now. Now I got to talk to you about Hillsdale College, because in this whole presidential process, they want a presidential selection survey taken by you at ericforhillsdale.com, because they want to know what you think about the presidential selection process. Do you like the nominations process? Do you like the Electoral College? Do you want to change to the national popular vote? What do you want to do? What do you think? Hillsdale College wants to know. ericforhillsdale.com. ericforhillsdale.com. ERICK. You go to ericforhillsdale.com, you take the survey on the presidential selection process, and then you find out even more about Hillsdale College, a great conservative education institution in this country. Hillsdale College actually usually teaches us, and we learn from them, and they give us access to free courses and Imprimis and things like that. But now they want to learn from you. What do you think about how we pick the president of the United States? Take the presidential selection survey from Hillsdale College at Eric, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com.
Tem momento na carreira que precisamos dar passo além. É hora de fazer uma pós-graduação. Só que muitas vezes o custo pesa no bolso, inviabilizando tudo. Com a pós-graduação do Senac, você não tem esse problema. Cursos com até 50% de desconto e muito mais tempo para pagar. TCC opcional, modelo flexível com aulas presenciais e online e alguns cursos com apenas 12 meses de duração. Não tem mais desculpa, hein? Saiba mais em sp.senac.br/pós-graduação.
Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. I think I'm kind of with the press pool on this. Kelly O'Donnell is the senior White House correspondent for NBC News, and right now she's the president of the White House Correspondents Association, and she is protesting CNN's decision to not allow the White House pool to be in the room in the debate. Now, I don't know the setup and logistics of the room. It's not as expansive as the CNN Center, but the White House press pool is going to have to sit across the street and watch a feed of the report. And Kelly O'Donnell in her statement says the White House Correspondents Association is concerned CNN has rejected our repeated requests to include the White House travel pool inside the studio. Through conversations and advocacy, we urge CNN to grant access to at least one print pool reporter for the duration of the debate. The White House Correspondents Association has been informed that one print reporter will be permitted to enter the studio during a commercial break to observe the setting. The White House pool has a duty to document, report, and witness the president's events and his movements on behalf of the American people. A pool reporter is present to provide context and insight by direct observation and not through the lens of a television production. Print pool reporters are an important part of the historic record. The pool is screened by the Secret Service and travels with the president on Air Force One. I actually agree with that. Have one reporter from the press pool of the White House present for the whole debate to see what's happening during commercial breaks, to see how the candidates are actually trying to talk over that isn't picked up on TV. I actually think that's good. She makes this great point. Tonight's debate will have no audience present and includes format rules that silence candidates' microphones. We don't know how this will play out in real time. A pool reporter is there to observe what is said and done when microphones are off or when either candidate is not seen on camera but may speak, gesture, move, or engage in some way. I think that's fair. I do. I think that having a print reporter who's part of the White House press pool to be present in the room the whole time, to witness everything quietly in the back, is worth it for history, if nothing else. CNN, if any of you there are watching or listening, I think Kelly O'Donnell is right, and you should have one of the members of the press pool there the entire time. This is a historic presidential debate. I appreciate that you've made the feed available to every other network, but having a person for the White House press pool there for history and posterity would actually be a good thing. And, you know, for all the criticisms we can level at CNN, kudos to them for making this available. You'll be able to watch this on your preferred network because CNN's made it available to everybody. It'll be their reporters asking the questions, but you can watch it on your network of choice because they've opened it up to everybody. And that was good of them to do. They didn't have to, and they did. So good for them on that point. See you guys tomorrow where we will discuss this.